I'm 84, and I've got 14 bottles under my kitchen sink. I counted them last Tuesday, when my granddaughter Clara opened that cabinet without asking, the way 14-year-olds do, without permission and without apology, and just stood there, looking at all of it. She didn't say a word, didn't have to. That look was enough. I've been thinking about those 14 bottles ever since, about how I came to have them, about what my mother would have said if she'd opened that same cabinet and seen what her son turned into. I've written some of what I'm about to share in the Coleman Remedy book. The link is in the description. But what I want to tell you today starts before the book. It starts in a kitchen in Harlan County, Kentucky, and it ends with me standing at my own sink, feeling something I can only describe as embarrassed. Not by anyone else, just by myself. If you've got a cabinet like mine, crowded, expensive, getting worse every year without you quite noticing, I'd like you to stay. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment below. I read every one. I'd like to know if this happened to you too. The kitchen my mother kept in Harlan County had one shelf under the sink, just one. And on that shelf sat three things: a bar of lye soap wrapped in brown paper, a box of baking soda with the corner folded down so she'd know where she left off, and a jug of white vinegar with a strip of old cotton draped over the neck. That's all there was. And with those three things, she kept a house clean that held 6 people. A house with a wood stove that threw soot every morning, and a garden's worth of soil tracked in on boots every single evening. She never ran out. She never drove anywhere midweek because the glass cleaner was gone. She didn't have glass cleaner. She had white vinegar and a piece of worn cotton shirt. And that combination did exactly what the glass cleaner claims to do. Exactly. Without the smell. Without the streak the commercial spray always leaves when the afternoon light hits it just right. I didn't understand at the time that those three things on that shelf were my education. I thought they were poverty. I was young enough to confuse the two. When Eleanor and I set up our first home in Knoxville in 1965, we were both 24, married that June. I did what I believed a man was supposed to do. I went to the grocery store and I bought things. There was a whole aisle by then dedicated to cleaning products. A spray for the counters, a different spray for the stove, something else for the bathroom, another thing entirely for the windows. Every bottle had a color coded to its purpose, and a smell designed to convince you it was working, and a name with a word like power or action printed on the label in letters that leaned forward. I was a mechanical engineer. I believed in purpose-built solutions. If something was designed for a specific task, it would perform that task better than something general. That seemed logical to me. That seemed like the thinking of a man who'd studied. Eleanor didn't argue with me about it. She was a nurse, and nurses learn early which arguments are worth having. She probably knew how this would resolve itself. She had the patience of someone who'd seen 1,000 things resolve themselves, given enough time. So we bought the products. Every week something ran out. Every week something got added to the list. I stopped counting. That's the thing about accumulation. You never let 14 in all at once. You'd never do that deliberately. But one every few months, one to solve a problem someone at the store convinced you was distinct from the problem you already had a solution for. And before long, you've got a cabinet that takes both hands to close properly. I remember standing in that aisle sometime in the early 90s, reading the label on a bottle called Kitchen Degreaser. I stood there and thought, didn't we already invent something for this? And then I bought it, put it under the sink with the other things, told myself it was specialized, told myself that mattered. Something bothered me even then. Not enough to change anything, just a loose board underfoot, a sound you hear and don't follow. Eleanor passed in October of 2019, and for the first time in 54 years, I was running a house by myself. I didn't change anything at first, bought what we'd always bought, stood in the same aisle, looked at the same labels, put the same things in the cart. In the early days of grief, habit is a kind of presence. You do the things you did when the other person was there, and the doing of them keeps the shape of things familiar. That's not weakness. That's just how grief works in a kitchen. But somewhere in 2021, the cabinet started bothering me in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. Not the cleaning itself, the accumulating. There were bottles in the back I hadn't touched in months, things with just enough product left that throwing them out felt wrong. A jug of fabric softener sitting there with that last inch of blue liquid in the bottom, just enough to make me feel I had to keep it, not enough to actually use for anything. One man, a house that has one man in it, enough cleaning products for a family of 5 on a busy Saturday. I did the math once, $60 a month roughly. Maybe more, for a house where the most dramatic cleaning event of the week is whatever soil I track in from the garden. My son Daniel calls every Sunday. He asked how things were going, the way he does. I mentioned the cabinet. He said, "Dad, just keep buying what you know." He meant well. He was trying to say, don't add more changes on top of the ones you've already had to absorb. But it sat wrong, because what I knew, what I'd always known in a place I hadn't yet reached, was that none of this needed to be complicated. Now, Eleanor kept a nursing journal. The careful handwriting she used when she was documenting something she wanted to be able to find again. There's a page near the middle, I've read it since, where she wrote a note to herself. Home products, what patients believe they need versus what they actually use. 28 years of walking into other people's homes. She'd watched this pattern repeat in house after house. She knew the gap between what the store sold and what was actually necessary. I kept meaning to go back and read that page properly. I kept not doing it. I've spent a long while writing down everything I know, everything my father knew, everything Eleanor observed in those 28 nursing years, everything I figured out on my own. It's all in the Coleman Remedy book, and the link is in the description below this video. There's an entire section dedicated to what you actually need under your sink versus what the cleaning products industry would like you to believe you need. The specific amounts, what genuinely works, what to leave on the store shelf. I wrote it because I wanted to get it right while I still could. But I wasn't yet living the lesson myself. Then Clara came to visit, Patricia's daughter, 14 years old, with her grandmother's eyes and her grandmother's habit of just walking straight at a thing. She opened the cabinet the way she opens everything, no warning, no preamble, and stood there looking at all those bottles. After a moment she turned to me and asked, the way only a child will ask, without tact and without cruelty, just plain curiosity. Grandpa, why do you have all this stuff? I didn't have a good answer. I had a habitual one, but not a good one. I thought about Clara's question for about a week. Why do you have all this stuff? There's no judgment in a question like that. It's just a child pointing at something obvious and asking what it is. Children haven't learned yet to be polite about obvious things. That quality makes them useful witnesses. I sat down one evening and counted properly. 14 bottles, all-purpose spray cleaner, glass cleaner, bathroom spray, fabric softener, dishwasher rinse aid, drain odor eliminator, foaming scrub for the kitchen sink, a different foaming scrub for the bathtub, produce wash, stainless steel polish, floor cleaner concentrate, and 3 things I genuinely could not identify until I read the label. 14 products, 1 man, a house that gets dirty mainly from the garden, and the occasional dusty book pulled off the shelf. That night I sat with my father's notebook, his hand-bound book, the cover worn smooth from years of handling, the pages browning at the edges the way old paper does. I wasn't looking for anything specific. Sometimes I open it the way other people reach for familiar company in a quiet house, not searching, just needing to be in that presence. Near the back there was a page I don't recall noticing before. My father's handwriting, slanting a little to the right, the way it always did, when he was writing something he considered self-evident, something he thought practically didn't need writing down, but was committing to paper anyway, for the sake of completeness. At the top of the page, in his plain hand, what vinegar handles? Then a list. 6 items. Glass and window surfaces, equal parts white vinegar and water. Stovetop grease and counter grime. Full strength. Let it set 2 minutes. Fabric softener in the wash. Half a cup in the rinse cycle. Nothing else. Dishwasher rinse aid. Poured into the rinse compartment, the same as any commercial product. Produce cleaning. Diluted in a bowl of cool water. Rinse after 2 minutes. Drain odor. Pour a cup down the drain. Follow with hot water. 6 uses. 1 ingredient. A gallon of white vinegar at my grocery store costs $1.19. My father wrote this page in the 1950s. A coal miner turned farmer who never once had money to waste on things that could be replaced by something simpler. He wrote it down because it was worth knowing, because everything worth knowing was worth writing down, and because he assumed, I think, that everybody already knew most of it. He just wanted to make sure it was somewhere it could be found again. I sat there in the quiet of the kitchen, with his notebook in my lap and the evening coming on outside. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised exactly. I was just still. The particular stillness of a thing clicking into place so quietly that it doesn't make a sound. Just the sense of it settling. My mother had 3 things on her shelf. She kept a house with 6 people in it clean. She was right. I didn't empty the cabinet in one afternoon. That's not how I do things. I have never been interested in grand gestures. I used what was there. When the glass spray ran out, I mixed white vinegar and water in the empty bottle, half and half, and cleaned every window in the house with a cloth cut from an old flannel shirt that had given up on being a shirt. The windows came clean without effort, and without the streak that commercial cleaner always left when the morning light came in. Better, if anything, not worse. When the fabric softener finally ran down to nothing, I started putting half a cup of white vinegar in the rinse compartment of the washing machine. The clothes came out soft, no smell of vinegar. It rinses out completely. Eleanor told me this once, years ago. I said, "Yes, dear," and went on buying the blue bottle for another decade and a half. The dishwasher rinse aid, the produce wash, the drain spray, the foaming scrub. One by one they emptied out, and I did not replace them. The cabinet under my kitchen sink has 3 things in it now. A gallon jug of white vinegar, a box of baking soda, a bar of Castile soap. My neighbor Bill came over last month. He was looking for something, and I told him to check under the sink. He crouched down, opened the cabinet, and stood there looking at all that empty space the same way Clara had. The same expression. That slight pause of a man recalibrating what he expected to find. "That's it," he said. "That's it," I said. He was quiet a moment. Then he said his wife had about 18 bottles under their sink. He said it the way a man says something he's been carrying for a while and didn't know he was carrying. I didn't say anything back, just let it sit there. I've written it all down, everything my father knew and wrote in that notebook, everything Eleanor observed in 28 years of nursing, walking into home after home, everything I spent 60 years learning and unlearning and learning again after the grocery store had its turn with me. I called it the Coleman Remedy Book. It's not a medical text. I'm not a doctor, and I never once claimed to be. It's more like what my daddy's notebook would have looked like if he'd had more time to finish it. A letter more than a manual. The link is in the description. Read it the way you'd read something left for you at the table, not looking for instructions, looking for the kind of company that saves you some trouble. Because the thing that stays with me isn't the money, though it does add up. $60 a month is $700 a year for bottles. It isn't even how quiet the cabinet is now, though there is a peace in opening it that I genuinely did not expect. What stays with me is simpler than that. My mother knew. My father wrote it down in the 1950s. Eleanor told me once in passing. The knowledge was always there, right where I could have reached it at any time. And somewhere between that shelf in Harlan County and the grocery store aisle in 1965, someone convinced me the old way wasn't enough anymore. That simple things were the province of people who couldn't afford better. I bought that idea. I paid for it for 60 years. I'm 84. I've got a clean house and 3 things under my sink. And the money I used to spend on the other 11 stays in my pocket now. My daddy used to say, the most expensive cure is the one somebody sells you. He was right about most things. He was right about that one too.